Good day, class. This is Miss De La Torre, and at this point, let's go ahead and talk about biomes. Before we jump straight into defining what biome is, let's first review how the latitude of the planet Earth determines the different climate zones, because knowing the different climate zones give us an easier understanding of what specific biomes will be present in a specific area. Okay, because each climate zone has its own distinct biome type. Now, I want you to focus on the illustration of the planet Earth in front of you right now. If you're going to notice, the Earth's axis is tilted, and because of that, sunlight is distributed differently. If you're going to check on the areas that is near the equator, you can notice that the sunlight here hits the surface directly. Okay? And since that's the case, therefore, it is more concentrated. On the other hand, if you are going to check the areas that is away from the equator, you'll notice that the sun's rays hits these surfaces at a certain angle. And because of those angle, the heat is distributed in a greater area, therefore producing less intense heat. So if we're going to further check it out, we can analyze that as one moves away from the equator, the less intense the heat gets. And this explains why countries lying on the equator or near the equator experiences either hot or dry and cold or wet seasons only. Okay? And as we may call them, these are countries that are tropical ones occupying the tropical zone, while those at the polar regions experiences a cold climate most of the time, and therefore they are called the polar zone. The area between the tropical region and the polar region is called temperate region, and these zone temperate zone houses countries that experiences four seasons like winter, spring, summer, and autumn or fall. Okay, this is because they receive an intermediate amount of heat with respect to their location on the globe. So again, take note of that. We have tropical zone, which lies within the equator, and it contains or experiences the highest amount of heat energy coming from the sun. And then as you move away from the tropical zone, you'll be having the temperate zone, which has the countries that has the four season. And then we'll be having the polar zone, which is the coldest portions of the planet. And each climate zone has its own type of biome. So let's go ahead and check them out one by one. If we are to define what a biome is, technically this is a large geographical region that has a particular type of climax community. So when you say climax community, this is a type of community that has um, flora and fauna that is distinct or typically found only in those particular areas. Okay? And biomes comes in two types. We have land biomes and aquatic biomes. So we're going to talk first about the land biomes such as tundra, taiga, deciduous forest, grassland, desert, and tropical rainforest. And mind you, class, this approach comes or starts from tundra, which is the biome occupying the North Pole. Then we'll be having the rest of the biomes that is present as we move towards the equator. So that means tundra occupies the North Pole and tropical rainforests are those that occupies the equator. Okay, in order. So okay, let's go ahead and talk about tundra first. Being the type of biome found within the North Pole, we can say that tundra experiences low average temperature and short growing season. That's the reason why whenever it is winter there, which is almost most of the time, okay, the ground is frozen. And during its short summer time, the idea is the ground still has what we call as permafrost or bits of ice sheets within the ground. Okay? Because of the this particular scenario. Okay, the vegetation here supports limited species of animals. So we can say that diversity when it comes to flora and fauna here is quite low. Okay, in comparison with the other types of biomes. So to give you a more vivid idea of where we could typically find tundra biomes, I have here this particular map. I want you to focus on the lavender colored portion, or like yes, light violet, or yes, I think it's lavender though. That is present within the north polar region. Obviously, that's how what you call this one, wide its coverage is when it comes to that particular area. Okay, other types of biomes are color coded as well. We'll be focusing on it each one by one as we move along the lesson. So let's continue our topic about tundra. If we're to talk about the vegetations found here, since again I have already described the um, geographical area in this portion, we can expect that vegetations that present or that exist here are that of lichens, mosses, grasses, sedges, and shrubs. So, because of the presence of snow and ice in the ground occupying tundra biomes, there's almost no tree that can be found here. Okay, and when it comes to animals, these are some examples of animals that can be found here. So we have caribou, or like reindeers, wolves, Arctic foxes, Arctic hares, and musk oxen. But this is just like some examples, not all of the animals present within the tundral biome has been presented here. Okay, always take note that these animals are adapted to extreme cold and low nutrients and short growing season, because again the summer here is very short in comparison with winter. Okay, and when it comes to adaptation, okay, animals here are capable of doing camouflage. They have thick fur, and others do hibernation so that they can survive. Like for example, Arctic foxes here and Arctic hares actually, as you can see here, they are white. That is because it's winter. But whenever it is summer, they turn their coats into brown to camouflage. Okay, and aside from thick fur and dense undercoats, they also have heavy layers of fat to protect themselves against the extreme cold temperature. Another um another thing that can be found among the animals occupying tundral biome is that their ears tends to be quite small and their legs are quite short, and that is an adaptability, okay, feature to reduce heat loss. Okay, another thing that is notable among animals here, like for example the predators that is present within this biome, like that of Arctic foxes. Okay, we all know that Arctic foxes, since they are predators, they tend to be more aggressive when it comes to um getting their food. But in this case, since nutrient is very low, they can be flexible in a sense that they can do scavenging. Okay, what they tend to do is not to be very active into like looking for prey. What they usually do is they follow larger predators, like for example polar bears, and scavenge on the leftovers of these larger predators. Okay, so here there's a lot of adaptive features present among different animals, so that they can survive. Okay, so let's now proceed to other examples of animals that present or that can be found here. This slide has the following examples. We have waterfowls, shorebirds, ptarmigans, and snowy owls. And we also have lemmings, though majority of these are like birds, and birds here tend to migrate to towards the south. Okay, those squirrels and bears that are present in tundra also practice hibernation. Lemmings actually is a very important part of the tundral biome food chain and ecosystem. Okay, um, because these lemmings, if you're not quite familiar with them, that's understandable because obviously we're here in the Philippines, but lemmings are actually rodents, okay? And they are very crucial in the tundra ecosystem because these acts as primary food source for predators like the Arctic foxes and the owls. Okay? Another thing that they we should take note of them is that they do not hibernate, and when it comes to their feeding habits, they tend to burrow, okay, within the ground, and that particular habit of them affects the plant life in soil because obviously they are able to turn the tundra's poor nutrient I'm sorry, nutrient poor soil into something that is better for the ecosystem because their waste helps fertilize the soil, and at the same time their burrowing tendency also helps with soil aeration and stuff. Another thing to take note is that since they act as again a primary food source within this particular biome, tendency is if there's like high population of lemmings, tendency is there will be more predators present in that tundral biome because they are going to be well fed and they'll be able to reproduce more successfully. Okay, but if there's like a very low number of lemmings in a particular tundral biome, tendency is it's going to be a domino effect. Okay, based on literatures, lemmings population tend to have this like high population versus low population cycle. Okay, they tend to have this 4-year cycle where they experiences a burst and drop when it comes to their population, and with that we can expect that the rest of the other animals, okay, present within tundra will be also affected. Okay, so technically, lemmings play a major role when it comes to um, managing the ecosystem of a tundral biome. Okay, so that's it for tundra. Let's now talk about taiga. So this slide here shows where we can typically found taiga. Just imagine the transitioning area between the North Pole's tundra towards the equator. So that portion transitioning or connecting them will be connected by taiga. Okay, so that means we have certain taigal biomes present in portions of North America, Europe, and Asia. Now, in comparison with tundra, obviously this taigal biome experiences longer growing season. That's around 120 days, and its summer in comparison to tundra is way warmer. Okay, and it also experiences precipitation or rain, which is around 50 to 100 centimeters per year. Okay, and what are the distinct things to take note of in taiga? That is, it has what we call as evergreen forest. Okay, so that means it has way more trees. Okay, in comparison with tundra. So this type of biome is way, what they call this one, kinder to trees in comparison with tundra. Okay, but still it experiences cold winters, and this one though also contains many ponds and bogs. So let's try to picture it out. Like what I mentioned a while ago, if we are to transition from tundra towards the other portion of the globe, um, reaching equator, well, you have to what? You have to go first through taiga. So taiga here is the portion that is colored dark green. Okay? So we can expect that it's technically adjacent to tundral biomes area. So, like what I mentioned a while ago, obviously it do have evergreen trees, or I'm sorry, a forest, and that is noted by pines, spruce, and spruce. These are the dominant trees that you can see within the evergreen forest of taiga. We also have willows and birches and shrubs and even herbaceous plants. You may encounter literature sharing that taiga biome is also known as the boreal forest, okay, or evergreen forest or boreal forest, and that is true. That is because boreal actually comes from the uh, the Greek god of north wind, which is called, or who is called Boreas. Okay, and when we talk, or when we say boreal forest, that literally translates to the forest that is present within the northern region, because this occupies, again, the northernmost forest in the globe. Okay, so always take note of that. Again, they are um, technically present within the northern region of the globe. And that's the reason why it's called boreal forest. Okay? Now let's talk about the animals present here. Again, these are just some. So we have moose, lynx, beavers, porcupines, snowshoe hares, and wolverines. Now, obviously, they are highly adapted to long, cold winters and short summers. Other examples of animals that are present here are wolves, black bears, grizzlies, deer, muskrats, oaks, martens, rodents, birds, and insects. And like the animals present within the tundral biome, they do have adaptive features like that of their insulation and camouflage. Many mammals here have developed thick insulating fur, um while again others do changes their colors, okay, their first color. Like for example, this snowshoe hare, it's only white because it's winter, but if it's summer, it turns its fur into brown. Okay, another distinct characteristic of animals present within these biome is that their foot structure. Okay, for example, like yung reindeers and caribous, okay, they actually have large wide hooves for them to walk on the snow, and lynx, for example, have large paws that acts like snowshoes. Okay, they also still do hibernation, and others even do migration. Okay, like for example, the bears that we can see here do hibernate so that they can save their energy. And many bird species that is present here also migrate south so that they can escape the intense cold whenever it is winter. So again, that is for taiga. Let's now proceed to the deciduous forest, which typically is present within the eastern North America and Europe. So with deciduous forest, okay, though this one here shows mixed deciduous forest, the lighter green coded, that's the area that is occupied by deciduous forest. Now, when we say temperate deciduous forest, again, if you are to recall the climate zones, when we say temperate zone, these are the areas that experiences what? Intermediate heat distribution between the polar and the uh, equatorial region or the tropical region. So therefore, it has moderate temperature, and its rain is around 75 to 150 centimeters a year. So that's way greater than that of the rain experienced by what? By taiga. Though here, winter is still quite long, and we can notice seasonal diversities among birds because, again, like other biomes that we've covered so far, birds here also experiences migration as part of their adaptation. Okay, so with animals and trees, these are just some examples of those that can be found here. So we have wolves, gray foxes, bobcats, deer, raccoons, opossums, squirrels, cottontail, rabbits, shrews, skunks, woodchunks, woodchucks, chipmunks, birds, and insects. We also have oak, maple, hickory, beech trees, and chestnut and birch. Now, class, always remember, starting from taiga, no, tundra rather, sorry. Starting from tundra up until here, you can expect that since the temperature tends to get warmer, okay, that also what is related with a more bearable type of environment that can accommodate more diverse flora and fauna. Therefore, as we go towards the equator, we can expect that the diversity of plants and animals increases too. Okay? So, plants and animals in a temperate deciduous forest is more diverse than that of taiga and tundra. Okay, let's now proceed to grassland, which is also called as prairies. It typically covers North America, Asia, South America, and Africa. So here, as you may notice, this occurs still in the temperate region, but also somehow covers some tropical climates. Okay, and the rainfall that can be experienced here is around 25 to 75 centimeters per year. Then, when it comes to vegetation, mainly since it is grassland, we can expect that we have more grasses than trees here. Grasses occupies the dominant form of vegetation here. That's because the soil here is deep and rich. That is good for farming. Okay, so some examples of animals that we can encounter here are coyotes, rattlesnakes, mice, prairie dogs, jackrabbits, and ground squirrels, as well as cattle, sheep. Some animals occupying the grasslands of Africa also includes elephants, antelope, zebras, water buffalo, rhinoceros, giraffes, gazelles, lions, leopards, and hyenas. And when we talk about the desert biome, which is again another type of biome, we're now transitioning, okay, to the equator portion already, or the tropics. This one has, as we all know, hot and too dry environment, that too dry environment to support grasses. Okay. Another distinct characteristic of this is that the soil here is sandy and poor. So that means very limited plants or vegetations can be found here in comparison with grasslands. Okay. If we are to talk about the deserts within the North America, it extends from Mexico to north and eastern part of the Washington. Okay. And then if we are to check as well the desert um, within South America, Africa, Asia, and Australia, Sahara Desert is noted to be the largest desert. Okay? Within desert biome, the day is hot and the temperature may drop though as much as 30 degrees Celsius at night. So it's very hot during the day, but it could also get cold during nighttime. So, like any other biomes, though, desert plants and animals have their own adaptations to survive within these particular biomes. Like, for example, desert plants have special adaptations for conservation of water. through their widespread shallow root system that allows them to store water within their tissues. And obviously, if you're going to check their structure, it's fleshy. Okay, so that also adds up to its ability to store water within its vascular tissues. um, these plants as well do have short lifespan, and they tend to produce seeds whenever rainy period happens. Okay, again, deserts still experiences rain. They do have rainy period, like what I mentioned a while ago. um, they still have rainfall, though it's around 25 centimeters a year only. Okay, with animals, okay, of deserts, technically they are active at night, so that means they are nocturnal, because they spend hot days in burrows in the ground to protect themselves from extreme heat. And rodents that are present here can actually survive with little drinking water. Other types of animals that can be found in a desert are snake, lizard, insect, scorpion, running birds, and rodents. Again, obviously, it's not as diverse like that of the what grassland vegetation and animals, but again, that has something to do with its geographical location. That's because it's almost like lying within the tropical region. Okay, the last land biome that we're going to talk about is the tropical rainforest. If you're hearing dogs barking in the background, I really do apologize. So we're almost done with here. We'll be having another like lecture focusing on the aquatic biomes. Okay, so let's go ahead and conclude this lesson. What are we going to see? Okay, among tropical rainforests. Again, tropical rainforests are those that can be found within the areas of the equator. And among all of the biomes or land biomes, these tropical rainforests are the most biodiverse rich type, okay, of biomes when it comes to vegetations and animals. Okay, that is because its climate is very uniform throughout the year. It's typically warm and moist. Okay, the rainfall here is constant. That's around 200 to 400 centimeters a year. That is because the humidity is very high. That makes raining almost present every day, and because of that the temperature is constant. Okay, now another distinct thing to take note of is that the tree cover here is so dense. Okay, because a lot of trees are present in tropical rainforest, and since the tree cover, okay, the canopies of the trees are very dense, there is little light that reaches the ground. Okay, and that technically affects humidity and later on again raining or precipitation within this particular type of forest. Trees here have shallow root system and have many large broad leaves. They also have thick vines, and there's lots of epiphytes here. And again, if we are to recall what epiphytes are, these are um, plants that get their water from water vapor in the air, right? And we can expect that that's a lot in this particular biome because again, it experiences constant raining. Okay, type of animals that can typically found in a tropical rainforest includes lemurs, sloths, monkey, lizards, snakes, frogs, hummingbirds, parakeets, parrots, and butterflies. So again, these are the different types of land biomes, and we're going to have the discussion for the aquatic biomes in the next video. I hope you learned something new today, and this is Miss La Torre. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.